When I grew up and first started angling, I would never set targets or target a certain species. I would just go out and have a day's fishing. I wasn't fishing for anything in particular. I would just set the same rig up week in, week out, and just go out and try and catch a fish. There was no such thing as nuisance species, and I would just enjoy watching that float tremble, disappear, and then the excitement of what could be on the end. I just loved catching fish. That stayed with me throughout my angling really. I have specialised at times, predominantly with the carp fishing. I do love my carp fishing, do a lot of that. But a couple of times a year, I will just get out with a pint of maggots, a few worms, and just go and see what I can catch. Today, I'm going to go and do exactly that. So I'm at Arrow Meadow Fishery near Redditch. This is a beautiful, beautiful fishery. The whole complex just has something for everybody. For those of you that do want to fish here, Arrow Meadow is completely exclusive. So when you book it, you book the entire complex, the big lake, the pleasure pool, and all the facilities. There's a website, and on there's availability calendar, and all your booking is done completely hassle-free online. My only piece of advice for those that are coming here fishing is to listen to Alan, the owner. Not only are him and his wife Lorraine the nicest people I've met in carp fishing, he lives on this complex day in, day out, and he knows what's working. There's a big carp lake behind me with carp to over 30 pounds in it. There's even a stretch of the River Arrow behind me that goes through the complex that you can fish in season. I've personally fished it in season. It's full of trout and silverfish, but also tucked away on site is a fun pool or a multi-species pleasure pool, and that's where I'm going to be today. And the plan is a species challenge. I'm going to try and catch as many species as I can in a day. Alan has very kindly given us permission to use our own keep nets and landing nets because they are brand new, out of the packet, and therefore there's no risk of disease. Normally, when you come to Arrow Meadow, all nets, mats and slings are provided for you. So this is the first fish of the species challenge. What do you think it's going to be? And the first fish is a little crucian carp. The pleasure pool here is full of everything. Any type, strain you can think of, any species, they're all in here. So let's see how many I can catch. Fish number 2, a roach. Even though there are lots of different species of fish in here and they all feed ever so slightly differently, I didn't want to complicate the day with dozens of different rigs and methods and tactics. So I've tried to keep it pretty simple. I've got a short line that I'm going to fish maggot over and try and catch some perch and gudgeon and those sort of edge dwelling fish. And then I'm going to fish out in the middle about 2+3 sections and just fish hard on the deck with caster and see what comes along. Species number 3. This little tiny rudd. I've bought both a pole and a feeder rod with me because the carp in here do grow well into double figures. I don't really want to be battling with them all day on the pole. So the pole I'm going to use for the smaller species, the sort of silver species, and then the feeder is going to be out and out big carp. Because of that, the rod I've chosen is the 10-foot Acolyte commercial with one of the new Vertex FD 4000 feeder reels, an 8-pound line. This is more than capable of taming any of the carp in this lake. Bait wise, again, really simple and probably looks exactly like what I would have had 20 years ago. 2 pints of red maggots and a pint of caster for the pole line. And on the feeder, I've just got some dampened down 2mm micros and some little wafters or hard pellets for hook baits. The target that I've been set was 10 different species, a pretty tough call, and therefore I was allowed to include different strains and species, so common carp, mirror carp, ghost carp, etc. The day started really well, and we had a couple of different species really quickly in the first couple of chucks. I had a crucian, some little carp, some rudd, etc. It's going really well. Within about the first 2 hours, unbelievably, I was at the halfway mark and 5 species. Species number 5, a golden rudd. It was at that stage that I decided to put the pole away for a little bit and have a go on the feeder. I spent about an hour on the feeder catching some big carp up into double figures, but I wasn't really adding to the species tally and so went back on the pole. We're having a really good day and I'm having so much fun. I thought tench was going to be particularly tricky, but I've just caught him by surprise on the short line that was feeding for perch. This makes it species number 8. So the rest by going onto the feeder seemed to have done the swim a bit of good, and actually the fish was stacked up under my feet just on a top kit, and I started to plug away at the species again and just numbers of fish close in, catching them quite quickly due to how close I was, and then disaster struck and I hooked that enormous fish that towed me around the pond for the best part of half an hour. Unfortunately, it got the better of me in that reed bed, and that seemed to unsettle the swim for a bit. It took me a little while to get them going again, and I had to go back out to the open water swim. Added a few more species, and finally, species number 10, that crazy, cool goldfish koi thing. Species number 10, and challenge completed, is this crazy crucian koi goldfish common carp thing. What a day. With the challenge completed, I wanted to get even, settle the score with whatever that fish was that I'd lost. I popped back to the car, got my carp gear, some big hooks, some big baits, and dropped a little rod down the edge. About 15 to 20 minutes later, I hooked into a fish that gave me the tow around and turned out to be a sturgeon, species number 11, a diamondback sturgeon. After losing what we think was a sturgeon earlier on the pole, I popped back to the car, grabbed my carp rods, and the bite was pretty quick afterwards. Species number 11 is a diamondback sturgeon. So even though that's challenge completed, I'm going to hang around for a few more hours and see what else I can tick off. If you want to set yourself for your own little species challenge, or just come down here and try and catch one of the many species here, I cannot recommend Arrow Meadow Fisheries enough. That's the end of the species challenge. A fantastic day's fishing. Every bite brought a different type of fish. I've had 13 different species over the course of the day. Orf, koi, brown goldfish, tench, crucians. It's been absolutely fantastic.